Hey, it's Juck.
Sure. That's a cool
Yeah.
Good to
background,
see.
big dog.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. There's no Canes helmet there.
No, you're
Instead,
good, man.
We're
Listen,
shocked. You should have an
listen.
honorary one for like 2002.
Listen.
let's get it.
That Chip Kelly's on board, and I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
Them Canes are still bitter, guys. They're still bitter. They reflexively are calling us Ohio as well, by the way. This Brady Hoke knock to Ohio State I've seen USC people saying it, Oregon people saying it. Like, people are literally calling us Ohio around the country. The Miami guys let it slip a couple times, pulled it back real quick because they didn't want to upset us. Like, we would be super upset by them calling us the name. I don't know. Like, we all have like shirts that just say Script Ohio on them. Like, we're supposed to be super upset or bothered by being called Ohio. How this thing has still got legs all these years after Brady Hoke is just beyond me. But it does. They love it, and they think they really got us with it. Anyway, welcome into Juck on Bucks. It's a Friday morning. Glad to see you guys. Juck Eye Studios, our first live show of the week, and I have learned, I think, how to accept phone calls on StreamYard. So we're going to try it out today. And if you want to call in, be on the show with me, there is a link in the description of this video, whichever station you're watching the video on. And if you click on that link, it's going to bring you up. It's going to look like you're entering a Zoom call, but it's not a Zoom call. It's going to bring you up, and it's just going to be an audio call. I'll be able to see you. You'll be able to watch the show from back there. And then later on, if we bring on calls, I'll bring you up and we'll have a talk. But Friday Night Lights tonight. And for the chat, are you going to a game tonight? I talked to a high school coach yesterday who is in the chat today, safeties coach of River Valley High School. And he is got quite the chore tonight as his safeties have the assignment of stopping Bodpin Miller tonight. So good luck to him and his guys, but they're in for a long night. I think we all know that. And man, it got me thinking, being young, playing small town football, like going up against a guy that's a 5-star athlete. He's a quarterback, but they've been, quarterbacks that aren't going to play quarterback in college. There's a category for that. It's called athlete. And how Bodpin Miller is not a 5-star athlete, I have no idea. One of the most dynamic in the country. But being that age and playing against a guy that you know is going to go on and play big-time college football, it is an awesome thing. And I was wondering if any of you guys have a story like that, either playing from or playing with or against some guys that went on to play big-time college ball, high-level players that maybe came through your school. And it just got me thinking earlier about guys that I played with or played against. My quarterback in high school, who later transferred, he went on to play at Mount Union and then was Jake Delhome's backup quarterback for the Panthers for quite a few years. So that was pretty cool when I was like 24, watching my teenage buddy backing up Jake Delhomme. And he actually got to play a few games. That was really awesome. But in the city of Akron, in my time, Antoine Winfield, 2 years older than me, obviously the best player in the city. We played them every year. He went to Garfield, same high school that Beanie Wells came out of. And St. V, where I went, known as a hoop school now because of LeBron, who came after me. We used to be a football school. We had Frank Stams, who was the captain of the last Notre Dame championship team, had a nice NFL career. Guys we've sent to OSU, Lawrence Wilson, defensive lineman, Sheon Cotton, Duran Grant, now the head coach back at the school. We had one team that won 2 back-to-back state championships with Dante Booker Jr. and Paris Campbell, 2 5-stars on the same team. They also had a really good supporting cast. That was one hell of a team. One of the better teams that we've seen in Summit County in some time. But at the time, I certainly thought that Dante Booker was going to have the more impressive career. Here we are 8 years into Paris Campbell's NFL career, and I was certainly wrong on that one. But Dante Booker, man, wow. That was one impressive high school linebacker. So this conversation has come up a lot over my life. This is something I love to talk about. And I used to include in this little spiel Jason Simmons. Jason Simmons in like 1991 at Ohio State set the all-time single season sack record, tackle for loss record, Big Ten player, all Big Ten player that year, won the Big Ten player of the week one week. He was awesome. And he graduated from my high school in 88, won the state championship at St. V. And I was having this conversation maybe 2 years ago with somebody and, you know, giving him his spiel, just like I gave you. And I said, Jason Simmons, and he's kind of looking at me funny. And I'm like, what, you didn't like him? He's like, do you know what he did? I said, yeah, he won a state championship with Ohio State. No, look him up, which I did. And now I no longer claim Jason Simmons. Anyway, let me know in the chat if you got a guy like that, somebody who stood out from your high school, but no post-game show today, obviously, or this weekend. The Buckeyes have a bye week, so I'm going to do my traditional weekend show. And in my weekend show this week, I'm going to bring on Max Torres from On3. Max Torres, you guys might have seen him with me before, but he is On3's Oregon guy at Scoop Duck. And I think he's just excellent. He's one of the few recruiting guys that I trust implicitly. And we're going to find out what in the hell is going on with that school up there. And they got themselves a game this week with Oregon State. And we'll go over that full slate of games this week. Oregon State certainly no slouch. This is a game that they could lose. But first, I want to go over the numbers from last week, the most viewed games from last week. I was wondering, so the Buckeyes have, you know, it's a rock star team, right? Everybody in the country wants to watch them. Looking forward, we see that they're on so many nationally televised games. This past one, we had on Big Ten Network. So obviously that totally kills being on a list like this. But the number one most viewed game last week, of course, was Texas, Michigan on Fox at noon with 9.5 million people tuning in to find out that Michigan has indeed crashed back to earth. Also some buzz swirling around about the NOA and maybe a change in tone coming from Ann Arbor. This is not something, I don't know if I don't really follow this or talk about this because my attitude towards the whole punishment part of what's going to happen here is basically like, it's just not interesting to me until something happens or when there's some movement in it. But I think there is some movement in it, potentially. So I'm going to bring on my buddy Dan today, Dan from the Best Damn Podcast. You guys have seen him with me before. He's somebody who absolutely follows this closely, often likes to needle them about it and get in lots of arguments about it for fun on a random Tuesday afternoon. So we're going to bring him on a Friday morning and find out what exactly is going on with this NOA. I watched the full 22 breakdown of that Michigan-Texas game. And unless the rules change mid-season and they can all of a sudden bring in transfer portal players, that team's losing 4 games. They just are. That offensive line's got 2 guys on it that are absolute stiffs, and they've got big issues, big-time issues. The second most watched game of last week, Colorado, Nebraska, 7:30 on NBC. And the second game of the day that I was watching with a very heavy rooting interest out of spite and dislike of Colorado. Hell, I was wearing a Nebraska shirt in the pregame show with Chris and Ron. That's how much I dislike Colorado. Nebraska didn't disappoint, along with a crazy intro before that game, man. They do it up at Nebraska. I love it. I showed it earlier this week. It was awesome. They definitely showed Colorado how they would fare in the Big Ten against a slightly above average Big Ten team. Maybe I'm underselling Nebraska with that a little bit. A pretty good Big Ten team. But 6.3 million people tuned in to watch them get embarrassed. And I got to thank them for giving me another rooting interest this week as they play Colorado State. And we'll get to that in a few. The third top ranked game last week, and I think we got a bit of a theme here. Another game that I watch with rooting interest for someone to lose. I call these hate watch games, and I love them just as much as watching rooting for somebody to win. Notre Dame hosted Northern Illinois at 3:30 on NBC. 4 million people were there to watch Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame get embarrassed by a MAC school. The week after, Notre Dame won against Texas A&M down at College Station, and people were talking about them being a lock for the playoffs because of how easy their schedule was, including me. I said the same thing. I gave Marcus way too much credit. I did get called out from a Michigan fellow this week that pointed out that I did not make fun of the Northern Illinois coach crying on the field after the game when I have mercilessly roasted Sharon Moore for doing the same thing at Penn State last year. The difference, of course, is that guy pulled off the biggest upset in the history of the MAC, like 134 games. Michigan went into Penn State as the favorite last year, and Moore was crying because of Jim Harbaugh's persecution as Jim sat down at Hooters down the road and watched the game. These are not comparable things here. I have no problem with crying over emotion for a big game. I don't think there's anything soft about it. But the fourth highest rated game of the week, Nico Iamaleava and Tennessee cemented themselves as true playoff competitors in a neutral site game in Carolina as they took on NC State at 7:30 on ABC. That game drew 3 million people. What a disappointment Dave Doran and NC State are this year. They were a lot of people's ACC kind of sleeper champ pick and a bit of a trendy choice as we moved really close to the season. What a disappointment. Number 5, Arkansas, the SEC, headed in to take on the Big 12's Oklahoma State. T. Boone Pickens Stadium, a tough place to play. The fans are right up on you. They're banging their things, whatever the hell those things are they bang. They're banging them hard and often. And Arkansas jumped out to a 21-7 halftime lead. Oklahoma State came back, took it into double overtime. That one was really exciting. The Pokes beat the Hogs. Woo Pig Suey sent them back to Arkansas. The Pokes now number 13 in the country. The 6th ranked game, South Carolina headed into Kentucky. 2.7 million people watched that. South Carolina absolutely destroyed Kentucky in a game that was a bit of a stunner to me. Kentucky, after a pretty solid season last year where they started off really hot, I thought this year was going to be a pretty tough out, even for Georgia, the likes of them. It definitely does not seem so after South Carolina destroyed them. Number 7, USF at Alabama. 2.6 million people watched. That game was damn near tied in the fourth quarter. It was like 14-13. Heading into the fourth, for the second straight year, Alabama struggled with USF, which is really odd. And let's not forget, that is just game 2 in Kalen DeBoer's tenure. After lighting it up game 1, it was just kind of the feeling like, okay, business as usual at Bama. Well, now 50% of his games against Cream Puffs, we've seen underwhelming performances, and Jalen Milroe was not good. He really was not good at all. So maybe some potential hope heading into this Saturday. 9, Baylor and Utah. And 10, primetime purgatory on the Big Ten Network. The mighty Buckeyes of Ohio State destroying Western Michigan. And the Big Ten obligation is now done. We've got one of those to do every year. It's over. So we're done with that, I think. But let's get into this week's preview. And we've got 3 games that I have chosen from each time slot. I like to break these up by time slots, and this is how I view the games, right? So we got our noon slot, and then we got our afternoon slot, and then we've got our evening slot. 9 total games. 5 of them are hate watch specials for me. Now, I know I've surprised some of you guys. Some of you got to know me throughout the course of the off season, right? And when you watch someone a lot, you feel like you get to know their personality. And maybe you've not seen this hater part of my personality. This is a big part of my personality when it comes to college football. I very much enjoy the hatred that I have for other places. I think it's one of the most beautiful things about college football. We'll start with LSU in the noon slot. LSU, who I did not used to hate until they hired Brian Kelly. Now I hate them very much. Head into South Carolina. The Tigers not off to the best start in 2024. 27-20 loss to number 23 at the time. USC struggled to put away Nicholls State in week 2. Well, they won by a lot, but the sucker was close. I think at halftime it was very close. They were a 46.5-point favorite. Should not be close going into the half. This defensive line at LSU is problematic. This is not a typical LSU defensive line. They desperately needed some help in the portal. If you remember, Brian Kelly came out earlier and we roasted him and was basically putting on a song and dance that you can come to LSU to get developed, but if you're coming for the money, this might not be the place for you. And we roasted him saying he's sending a terrible message that they're not going to pay people in the portal. And it turns out there was a little bit of a different scenario. I was probably a little unfair with him. What was going on was they didn't really have enough money to raise the guys on the team that were comparable to the guys that we're going to bring in. And essentially, when you're bringing a guy for $1 million and you got a guy who's a comparable player who's been in your program and he's making $200,000, you certainly got to make him even, right? And you got to raise everybody else up that's on that level. They didn't have the money to do it. So he was trying to spin it the best way he could, but it made for a good soundbite and a fun episode. And I got to rip him. So I'm good with that. South Carolina, a team without much offense to speak of, but a defensive line that is really getting after it, led by true freshman Dylan Stewart, a guy we almost had. This dude is sensational, and he's probably going to end up being the best pass rusher in college football by the end of the year. Absolutely tremendous player. But it's not just him on that defensive line. He's got some other dogs with him. I think they got 10 sacks on the year already. So South Carolina hosting them. I'm going to go ahead and go with South Carolina in this game. South Carolina getting 7 points at home. Let's go with South Carolina. Last week's picks, we ended up with a winning week. We were 6 for 5. First pick of the day, we're taking South Carolina +7 at Williams-Brice. Second game in the noontime slot. This one I've been looking forward to for a long time. Alabama heads up to Wisconsin. And this game was in my, maybe 15 of my top 20 games of the year because of the implications, right? But at the time when I was so excited, I had assumed, I think maybe wrongfully, that Luke Fickell would have this Wisconsin team rolling a little bit more. He's just not quite there yet, man. He's not quite there yet. They're not quite gelling with Phil Longo's offense yet. TVD hasn't looked so hot. Their receiving core looks very, very bad. And they've really disappointed so far. I do still think that Luke Fickell has it in him to turn that program around. They're recruiting well. But as for this week, I just don't think they're going to have the firepower to be able to really score much at all on Alabama. The line, though, it's Bama -16. And I think that might be a little low. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Alabama. Interesting tidbit about Wisconsin. I'm not sure if everybody knows this. So during the 10 years of the 14 playoff era, we always talk about Penn State. How much this would have benefited Penn State in that era. Wisconsin actually won more games in those 10 years than Penn State by a few, which is usually a surprise when I bring that up. It was a surprise to me when I heard it. You kind of forget all the 10 and 11 win seasons that Wisconsin had, and they were still rolling rather recently. So Luke Fickell can definitely bring them back. But even though Jalen Miller struggled last week and Kalen DeBoer has not been sensational yet, I still think they're going to end up covering that 16 at Camp Randall. All right, in our third game of the noontime slot, a game that some Buckeyes may be a little more interested than they otherwise would have been, we've got Missouri, the 6th-ranked team in the country, hosting surprise 24th-ranked Boston College. So Bill O'Brien goes into Columbia, Missouri to take on Missouri as a 16-point favorite. And I got to tell, I just feel like this Boston College love is a bit of smoke and mirrors. I think they deserve to be in the top 25. Bill O'Brien is really crafty. His quarterback, Thomas Castellano, is a hell of a runner. I don't think they can keep this close. Missouri is -16. I'm going to take Missouri to definitely cover that number, even though I really hope that they can keep it relatively close. I just don't see it happening. All right, we're moving on to the afternoon slot. The afternoon slot, we've got some cool games. We got the Civil War, and we got the Apple Cup. Oregon heads up to Corvallis. Oregon has lost 3 of their last 4 games to Oregon State. Now, let's think about that. Over the past 8 years, Oregon State has not been great. They've had a couple of good teams. During that time frame, Oregon's relatively been a very good team, and they've lost 3 of their last 4 heading into Corvallis, which is a very weird place to play. It always has been. People hate heading up to Corvallis. But Oregon State 2 guys so far have 200 yards rushing on that team, which is really quite impressive through 2 games. And we know that Oregon has had a problem stopping the run. They got issues on the offensive line as well. For sure, their skilled players way better than Oregon State's. Dylan Gabriel, despite not being great and not being as good as Bo Nix, has definitely put up some big numbers, and they can probably slice and dice them and put up some points, but can Oregon State slow the game down, rush on them? It could be tight. The odds makers see this as Oregon minus 16. I'm just not quite ready to write off what I had previously thought of Oregon heading into the season, though I probably should. This may be maybe naive, and I may regret it. I'm going to go with the Ducks minus 16 in this game, and the Ducks win the Civil War, which they don't want us to call it anymore, but I don't play that game. The Red River Shootout, the Civil War, you can't just rename games. I'm not down with that. All right, in the Apple Cup, which Brock Heward, former Washington quarterback, does not want us to call the Apple Cup because of what happened here, and he may have a point. Washington and Washington State. Washington was leaving the Big Ten. Obviously, they wanted to resume play with Washington State, but they were dealing from the position of strength in this negotiation. They could go ahead and, get rid of the game, and not a whole lot would happen. Washington State in the Pac-2, they needed that game. Washington said, all right, listen, we will play the game against you. We'll do a 5-year contract. But this year, we're supposed to come up to the Palouse and play you up there. We're not. We're going to play the game at home. So we're going to have 2 consecutive home games. And the reason is we don't want to pay to travel all these Big Ten games that we got to go. These away games going to cost us more. So we're not going to travel up and play you. And Washington State acquiesced, but they said, we're not going to play you at Husky Stadium. We're going to play at the Seahawks Stadium. So it is a true neutral field venue. Washington State fans are furious about this. This is supposed to be their turn in the rotation to get the home game. We can put ourselves in their shoes. That would suck. I mean, this is a hated rivalry, and you have just given away your home field advantage. But Washington had him by the balls. What were they going to do? So they're playing in Seattle. Washington State fans are saying they may not go. Their coach is begging them to go. They may not go out of protest. This game, just a 4.5-point line. Washington minus 4.5. And last year, Washington made it to the national championship game. They only won this game by 3 points. This is a crazy competitive rivalry that I think a lot of us in Ohio don't really pay much attention to, but it really is. Washington's new coach, Jed Fish, did a hell of a job at Arizona. This guy, when you listen to him talk, doesn't seem like he'd be a great football coach or a guy who would be good around college kids, but he has been one hell of a college football coach so far. He has not been shy about the talent depletion on that Washington roster, but he's got him playing really good so far. Quality coach. This line opened up at Washington minus 8.5, has since moved to Washington minus 4.5. And because of that movement, I think we see value in Washington. I'm going Washington minus 4.5. And we got one more game in the afternoon slot as Texas A&M heads to Florida. And Florida is like the car crash that I just can't take my eyes off of. You've got on one side here, the Texas A&M bonehead quarterback, Connor Wegman. Remember, I played you that video earlier on this week of Connor Wegman with that magician from ESPN. Oh, man, this dude, let me get my shoe back, bro. That was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. But he heads on into the swamp to take on Bonehead Billy and the Gators. Now, last week, Graham Mertz, Florida's quarterback, who's a pretty damn solid quarterback, got knocked out with a concussion. Freshman phenom DJ Lagway comes in, played the best out of all the young quarterbacks this week. Better than Dylan, better than Nico. Threw for over 400 yards. First ever start. Did he start? He might not have started. It was the first ever game. He was sensational. And this is the only way that Billy Napier can save his job, is attach himself to DJ. Look, this is my guy. You get rid of me, DJ's coming. I doubt that'll happen, but you get what I'm saying. Like, this is his only way. What's he going to do? He said he's going to play them both. Ridiculous. We'll see how much he plays DJ. I think he's heard a whole lot of backlash since he said earlier this week that he's going to play them both. So we'll see what happens. The Swamp, always a fun place to watch the game, especially when the Gators are losing. Texas A&M is -3.5 here. However, I'm going to take the home dog. I like them to win outright, and you can make fun of me later on this week asking me why I would ever back a team led by a coach who I nicknamed Bonehead Billy. I don't know, just got a feeling. The 7:30 time slot, we have Georgia going to Kentucky. Georgia, a 24-point favorite. Now, we saw Georgia absolutely kill Clemson, a Clemson team who has since showed us maybe they're a little better than we originally thought, and Georgia's just that good. And then last week, we saw Kentucky get destroyed by South Carolina at home. Makes me wonder why this is only a 24-point line. I'm not quite so sure that this shouldn't be a little bit higher. I think there might be some value in betting on Georgia here. But the only way we ever see Georgia get a game in games like this is if they are caught looking ahead. And Kirby Smart's teams never do that, much like Ryan Day's teams. These are teams that win the games they're supposed to win. So I'd be stunned if they laid an egg against Kentucky. And Kentucky just doesn't have that much punch this year. I thought they might. They don't. I'm going to take the dogs minus the 24 points this year. And we have got a sneaky good game in Texas as UCF, first year in the Big 12, UCF with Gus Malzahn. This program, they've been going all in. They run the heck out of the ball. They've rushed for over 400 yards already. Gus has a dynamic rushing attack, and they've been stacking talent. They brought in a ton of transfers. KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, not a great quarterback at Arkansas. At UCF, that's a hell of a quarterback. Penny Boone from Toledo, hell of a running back. Huge financial investment going on at UCF right now. They've upgraded facilities. They're very excited to enter in to the Big 12. And with the talent they have around there, the money they're putting in, I don't think it'll be long before we're talking about UCF as, you know, a Big 12 contender every single year. They might start it this year. It's going to be 100 degrees at kickoff, which is pretty funny. I saw that listed as if that's some advantage to TCU. Like, these dudes play in Orlando. I think 100 degrees of Texas heat is probably going to feel a little better than I don't know, 95 in Orlando. The last time I was there, it was absolutely disgusting. If you poked the air, you would like a raindrop would fall out. Like, that's how heavy that air is, man. I hate it. My wife is dragging me there next month, and it is what it is. We'll do the show from Juck on Buck Studios Southeast that week. Don't worry, guys. The microphone comes wherever I go, just like Arizona, which, by the way, my next guest from Arizona, I'm just not a fan. That was the first time I'd ever been there. I don't know what it is, but I like to travel different places around the country and just kind of feel the area, right? I'm always looking for that, I don't know, that second house. Where would I like to go if I wanted to go somewhere and maybe have a second place where I maybe rent it out and then go and visit there a couple times a year? So we went to Arizona to check it out. I don't know if it's the climate, the lack of greenery. It might have been that. Everything just seems so brown. I didn't like it. It didn't have a feel that I liked, so it wouldn't be my choice. And then you got that sticky, gross Florida weather. Anyway, let's talk about football. In the last game of the day, the Hate Watch special of the day, Colorado takes on Colorado State. Yes, Dev, I'm coming to Florida next month. Devin lives in Tallahassee. I will be in Orlando next month. Colorado takes on Colorado State at Colorado State. And as you know, I'm not a fan of Colorado. Remember, this game last year came down to the wire. This Colorado State team played inspired last year. They were not very happy with all the attention Colorado was getting. And remember, this is the game that cheap shot came in on Travis Hunter that knocked him out for like 5 weeks that nobody appreciated, because as much as I dislike Colorado, I certainly want to see that dude play. He's a hell of a lot of fun. And to be honest, the team is fun to watch, win or lose. The Buffs just got beat up by Nebraska, and I don't know, man. We'll see how this guy goes, but I got a feeling that Colorado just has a little too much firepower this year. I feel like this offensive line, while terrible and missing lots of assignments, they just they're better than what they've got at Colorado State. The talent gap here is pretty wide, in my opinion. And while I'd like to see Colorado State play super inspired and pull off what they almost did last year, I just don't think they got the bodies to do it. I'm going to go with Colorado -7 here, and that will wrap up our picks of the week. Last week, a winning week. We shall see what we do this week. Now, we talked about players that we played with or played against, or guys from our city. And my next guest has a really interesting story. He had one heck of a interesting story here. Juck is unflappable. Dano, you ready? You ready? All right, here comes my guy. Dan Divjak from the Best Damn Podcast coming on to join me now. My old pal, Dano.
Juck, what's going on, brother?
What's up, buddy? Thanks for coming on to join me this morning, Dan. Now, I was talking earlier about guys from our high school or guys that we played with. You always have had an interesting story that I love. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Prior to diving into that one, I have to get a shout out to Ricky Tricano, quarterback from Brooklyn, Ohio, who went and played for Pitt, held all their records before Dan Marino came around. So little Brooklyn, Ohio, 5 square miles on the edge of Cleveland. I think he's the only one that ever got out. But yeah, eventually I moved to Arizona and I went to a school by the name of Mesa Mountain View. And I think the first big guy that came out of there was a guy by the name of Todd Shell. He played on some 49er Super Bowl teams as a linebacker. Todd Heap came out, probably an NFL Hall of Famer at the tight end position. But the biggest name, or my most favorite name, obviously, because of the connection to the Buckeye Nation, is Joe Germain. He was 3 years behind me. So he was a freshman when I was a senior. I started at quarterback my senior year. Freshmen back at that time in Arizona were at the junior highs. So I didn't actually get to, ever run on the practice field with him, but he came up behind me and he started as a junior and a senior, which was really rare at our high school, set all sorts of records, state player of the year, won a state championship, and then went on to do what he did. Beating those scum devils in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah. Always love that one. So, Dan, the NOA has been up at Michigan for a while now. And I feel like in the time that it's been up there, we have seen a change in tone. And it just feels a little bit different. The attitude feels a little bit different. We saw Ward Manuel go on with ScamWeb. And I watched that entire interview. And he just gives off the vibe of, look, he even said it. When it's time to fight, we're going to fight. When it's time to accept responsibility, essentially something like that, we're going to accept responsibility. And it just sounded very mature. We'll put it that way. It sounded mature. And we've not heard any maturity from them, the administration or the leadership throughout this entire thing. Now we heard some stuff earlier this week that maybe they found some evidence of something or an independent firm. Take us through where we're at with this thing, because I'm kind of lost as I don't follow it too closely.
Yeah. So, obviously the NOA has been served. And what we know about NOAs is that, there's typically some sort of dialogue prior to that actually being issued between the institution and the NCAA to try to come to some sort of resolution without actually doing the NOA. Obviously Michigan stood firm in what, they were willing to accept. The NCAA wanted a lot more. And this is all coming from sources that have been pretty spot on, since the beginning. Not 100% correct. Nobody ever is, but pretty spot on with getting ahead of some things. And, this guy Premium Drum was on the 11 Warriors the other day. He's been incredibly accurate. Scoop's been all over it. But, these are things that we're hearing at this point, is that Michigan didn't want to play ball. They were holding, steadfast prior to the NOA coming out. So the NCAA issued the NOA. And, what comes with the NOA is all the investigative evidence that they found. And I think what happened, and I feel pretty comfortable with this, is that Michigan realized that they've got a lot more than they ever imagined. And that's the thing that I've just been frustrated with and laughing about at the same time, is that this draft of the NOA leaked. It really didn't talk about evidence. And people suddenly seem to forget about the 13-page letter from the NCAA and the Big Ten in October or November that outlined all the evidence. It's like, did that evidence just disappear? Do you think that they just forgot about that and left it out of the NOA? So all that evidence and more came out. It's now being said that there is a digital footprint that leads back to numerous coaches accessing the information on their servers, information such as signs, information such as video from the sidelines, and, they're saying practice film. So, what do they say about conspiracy theories? They're only a conspiracy until they're proven true. I think that's what's happening here.
Can you remind me quickly what evidence was highlighted in that letter from Batiti?
Yeah, so one of the big things, one of the first bullet points was that they had this very elaborate master spreadsheet that showed who was going to what games, all their travel arrangements, the names of the people that were going, the games that they were going to, the seats and the tickets that they were getting. Like, there's a master spreadsheet that pretty much charts out the entire operation. And then also in that letter, it talked about video evidence obtained from sidelines. It talked about interviews with people that actually went to the games on his behalf. There was one like low-level NCAA staff member from like a D3 school that spoke openly to the NCAA about being one of the people that were asked to go. People, they just forgot about all of that.
So we're assuming that they've got, more than that, right? And now we're talking potentially evidence of all these coaches or several coaches on the staff accessing this. How much does that change maybe the punishment? I guess they were trying to say that this was a lone wolf operation. The coaches weren't involved. Nobody knew anything. He acted on his own. Now, if you had several coaches clearly involved and they can prove it, how much do you think that changes the potential punishment here that they knew?
If they've got evidence that these coaches accessed practice film or the signed database, on their laptops and on their servers, it changes the entire game. It changes the whole narrative, this whole lone wolf, sociopath, and make no mistake about it. I know you like to affectionately refer to him as some dweeb, but he's a sociopath. And, but this lone wolf theory, it's gone. And all it does is prove common sense. The only people that have said, it's totally normal for a $55,000 a year recruiting analyst to be in the ear of both offensive and defensive coordinators and the head coach throughout the game with, charts in his hand are Michigan people. The only ones that think that that's normal are Michigan people. So it changes absolutely everything if they can tie it back to more than Connor Stallions. And if you remember, in the draft of the NOA that got leaked, it did refer to 7 people. And everybody assumed that it wasn't coaches. But it referred to 7 people, and it mentioned at least one staffer was in those 7 people. So it changes absolutely everything. It shows that it was a coordinated effort. It shows that it was known throughout the coaching staff, and that they leveraged it to the best of their advantage.
I do refer to him as the little manifesto dork. That's more because he's just like, when you hear, even in that documentary, when you listen to him talk, the grandiosity that he thinks in his head that he is the hero in his own action movie. Like, it just runs through his head. The manifesto. He's going to take over Michigan football. Here's what he's going to do. When we listen to him talk about his manifesto and highlight his stupid NFL, where all the NFL players came from for recruiting, like, this information we could find in 10 minutes. He's talking about this as a competitive advantage. His eyes, Dan, when he was looking at that thing, he was looking at the screen, like, you could just see the pride in his work. And this is after we all know this dude's not ever coaching again, but he thinks he is, right? He thinks he's going to make some extravagant comeback. That video.
Oh, but Juck, he's coaching.
Yeah, the video.
He's coaching at Axel Foley's alma mater. He's literally at Mumford. He's literally at Mumford in Detroit. And
Beverly Hills Cop reference on Juck on Bucks. Gotta love it. You never know what you're gonna catch on a Juck on Bucks live on Friday morning. But the video of him last week, I wish I had it loaded up. Arguing with the ref. He thought it was third down. It was a turnover on downs, and it gave off such spoiled child vibes. It was like just the way that, you know, when you see those kind of kids, you just know what I'm talking about. And when we listen to his parents talk about him and the way they coddle him, it seems pretty clear that's the situation that went on with this guy. You got all these the fact that he was able to just walk into that program the way he was, the way he explained it, I find odd. Like, I don't think I could do that at Ohio State. Just like roll up into a coach's clinic and be like, hey, can I come to work Tuesday? Yeah, sure. Come on, come aboard. The whole thing's so weird.
I think that's the second job that he had up there. I think the first one ran him out, and he like started to get stage 5 Klinger vibes, and the principal had to step in, or somebody from the board had to step in and say, like, listen, you don't work here, man. Like, we never hired you. Like, I think the coach did it behind the scenes. Like, make no doubt about it. This guy has boiled bunnies in his past. I have zero doubt. And, you know, watching him, but, you know, when he was arguing with the refs down 60-0, I'm sure he had a plan there, right? It was to show his players to never quit. It's all part of his brilliant mind and thought process.
Yeah, for sure. I saw he came out and told him the old story about the apple tree and the roots and the trunk. I mean, like, he's got all these sayings. He's got it mapped out. He thinks he's going to turn that program around and be a college coach. So
Sanctions.
When do you think that we are going to see the next movement in this case? Is something coming soon? Like, when does the next step happen? What is the next step?
Well, so what's happening right now, once an NOA is issued, obviously the member institution's got 90 days to review and reply.
How long? How far?
That is 90 days. The 90th day is the Monday before the game. Isn't that interesting? So that's the 90th day they have to reply. And then the NCAA, if Michigan chooses to reply and fight it, the NCAA's got, I think, 30 to 60 days to more or less dish out their decision and their punishment. Now, there are rumors that they're starting to, you know, that Michigan, to your point, Ward Manuel, he's seen the evidence at this point. His tune is completely changed, and that they're probably trying to talk to them about some sort of negotiated settlement. I can tell you what the NCAA wants, and, you know, or what the rumors are out there. The rumors are that they want Michigan to vacate all 3 years of wins and titles, 21, 22, and 23. Piece of information that's fairly new. I think it's been assumed, but apparently both the NCAA, or both the Big Ten and the College Football Playoff Committee have already committed to honoring and going along with that. So that to me was pretty big news, because I've always said that the last half of 23 and the title would be a wild card, because apparently, you know, they quit cheating as soon as they got caught, you know, unlike the guy in the neighborhood who promises not to cheat for the 8th time after the new yoga instructor moves in next door. They promised to quit cheating as soon as they got caught. But that's apparently out there. We're looking at a multi-million-dollar fine. And then this is coming from a pretty good source, that the NCAA wants to dish out lifetime bans to both Harbaugh and Stallions, and then 5-year bans to Moore, Minter, Jay Harbaugh, and others. So that tells me, if true, they've got proof that those folks knew about it. Those would be the first ever lifetime bans in the history of the game.
I got to wonder, we see guys, a couple of the national guys like Klatt and Pate, who, acknowledge that this happened and don't really feel that it was, and everybody knew and don't really feel that it was that big of a deal. They don't feel like something like this is coming. I get very frustrated by the tone of some of these national folks who just kind of act like this was no big deal. And I guess I just want one of them to explain to me why you would go through all of this elaborate, huge operation, tons of details, tons of people involved, tons of money spent, coordination, if this wasn't giving you a very big advantage over the next guy. I've not heard anyone answer that question adequately yet that would make me say, and I'm a reasonable guy, this is an unquantifiable advantage that happened on the field. If we knew how many points it was, it would be great. We don't. It's unquantifiable. But what makes me feel like it was worth more than I think the average layman might think was the lengths that they went to get this stuff. It's just a huge money-making, time-consuming operation. As businessmen, we know what went into this. This is a big, massive pain in the keister, man. Like, you don't do this for nothing. This is a huge operation. I just want to hear one of those guys explain to me why, if it's not that big of an advantage. I mean, Klatt comes out straight up and says it was nothing, right? Like, absolutely nothing. Dude, people don't go through lots of time and money spent for no return. It was certainly something. You can debate on how much it was. It was certainly something. And when I say something, I don't mean we all got something because we're all stealing signs. I mean something in addition to what everybody else got. And I just wonder what the change of tone will be from those type of folks and a whole lot of the country who feels like them if these punishments you and I are talking about come out and they are that severe. Like, what do they say now? Is there a big backlash against the NCAA that they went way overboard? Obviously, all of us will be laughing hysterically and quite happy. But is there a huge backlash against the NCAA if they come out on this? Because those folks are dug in that this was not that big of a deal and that Michigan team was 100% a legit national champion. We've seen, of course, the Michigan fans spin what Charlie Baker said, thinking that that they totally misunderstood what he said, which is just amazing to me. But anyway, I just wonder what the national feeling on that is going to be. And I also, gosh, I had another thought. I was just about to, I had another question for you. Anyway, what are your thoughts on those guys that think nothing is going to happen?
Listen,
nothing should happen.
Follow the money, right? I think those guys, particularly somebody like Pate, especially somebody like Klatt, who's, calling the big noon game every week and everything else like that, is trying to protect the product. That's really all that I think that it is. And I think one of two things will happen. But what's interesting, back up for a second, is that you started to see a turn from some of the talking heads after the documentary. You saw Danny Cannell come out, and he was really boisterous about it. And love him or hate him, he was pretty quiet about it up until that documentary came out. Once the documentary came out, he kind of went over, out of his way to say, like, listen, something needs to happen. And I'm hopeful that if the evidence truly is what we're hearing, and they levy the punishment and the sanctions that we're hearing, because the evidence is so indisputable and so strong, that those guys will become reasonable and acknowledge that, hey, you know what? I know what we've said in the past, but we didn't know what we didn't know. Now we do. And the punishment fits the crime. Will that happen? Who knows? I mean, everybody, it's like the, stupid shows you see on ESPN and Fox where you got two people talking with each other and they decide who's going to take what side in advance, whether they believe it or not. They might take the opposite side just to be controversial and get the clicks. But here's the deal. And, this isn't, to me, as a lifelong Ohio State fan, to me, this isn't even about the the sanctions and the extent and whether it impacted the game or not, which I think it did. To me, this is more about just the integrity of the game. And you disrespected the most treasured and best rivalry in all of sport. You just outright disrespected it because you got your pay cut in half and you were about to lose your job. And it's about the blatant disrespect of the game and the rivalry, and then the embracement. And you've talked about this before. Is that a word? Embracement? The embracing of your manifesto dork and treating him like a hero. And Dave Portnoy bringing him onto Barstool and him being invited into the locker room to take pictures with the trophies and the players after the Big Ten title and after the Natty and to be celebrated. It's la la land, man. And it's just disrespectful to the game and the rivalry. And to me, that's the part that's upsetting to me. Like, I get angry when I think about that.
No, I'm with you. A lot of Ohio State fans have said in the comments to me, like, they've ruined the rivalry for me. It'll never feel the same. And I think a lot of that is the way their fan base has acted over this. And I just feel like I personally, I can't speak for a lot of Ohio State fans, but I feel like I personally would feel embarrassed and ashamed by this if this were Ohio State that had done this. That's the way I think I would feel. Of course, publicly, I would probably try to back my guys as best as I could without making myself look stupid, but I would feel embarrassed and ashamed by the head coach that did that. If that was Ohio State. I'll tell you one thing that I have never bought into throughout this entire thing is, should they, they're trying to pull this technicality deal. Well, the college football playoff is independent of the NCAA. Listen, if the NCAA wants that done, the college football playoff walks lockstep. Like, that's the way that's going to roll here. You're not getting off on a technicality. If they want to strip that title, the title's gone. And
you got the Reggie Bush scenario as an example, right? The NCAA deemed him ineligible, and the Heisman Trust, which is an independent body of the NCAA, stripped him of his Heisman. They didn't need to do that.
No, they absolutely didn't need to do that. No, they totally did not need to do that. But yeah, they all walk in lockstep together. This is the old boys club. You know what I mean? Like, these dudes all roll together. The money all rolls together. If that national championship is deemed something that the NCAA wants to strip in that punishment when it comes down, that puppy's gone. And whether it is or it isn't, I find this changing tone a little bit fascinating in a way that I have not found this story fascinating for quite a while. I know a lot of people love to talk about it. I'm just like, until something happens, like and this is probably the first time I've talked about it on the show in quite a while. There are some funny things about Stallions and such, but like you said, the fan base's embracement of this guy, it's just amazing to me. It really is. And here's the biggest kicker is, Dan, look, it's one or the other. They say it didn't matter, right? So if it didn't matter and he didn't give you any advantage, why would you embrace him, right? You would despise him for bringing on all this crap. Or it did matter, and that's why you love him. So it's one of the two. It either helped not at all, and you should hate him, or it helped a lot, and you should love him in that case, or despise him. It's just amazing to me. There's no way you can justify embracing this guy in your bosom, right? You can't embrace it.
Well, what they'll tell you is that he did nothing wrong and that he's a martyr, and that's why they embrace him.
But he brought all this crap on you. He's the one responsible for all of this. He should be a pariah. There is no chance that my people, the people wearing the proper color, would embrace that guy. No chance.
No, I agree. Hey, two other things real quick that I think are important that a lot of people, I'm surprised it's not talked about more. So, there were two NCAA bylaws that have been passed since this happened. One of them was in December. Okay. And it was on the heels of all this. And what it said was that the NCAA could dole out punishment prior to an investigation being completed if the evidence is known and overwhelming. Now, that's on the heels. I mean, so that tells me everything that you want to know about how the NCAA wishes they could have handled this, right? They wish that they could have done something right when it was discovered and rule them ineligible for the rest of the season. They wish they could have done that because of their, I guess, due process, the 90 days, the NOA, the 90 days, the time to respond and everything else like that. They couldn't do it. So that's why the Big Ten had to step in, and they did as much as they could. Their hands were tied as well because they have to wait for the NCAA investigation to be complete as well. So passing that bylaw on the heels of this, it was not coincidental. Okay. And then also the one that was on the heels of both Arizona State and I can't read that. I don't have my glasses on. Arizona State and, the Michigan thing where they're saying now, if you cooperate, you can gain leniency in the sanction phase, which was on the heels of Arizona State fully cooperating with their investigation, as well as Michigan not cooperating at all. So again, not coincidental. So I know people don't like the word, but I got to get it in here once. The hammer's coming.
Yeah.
MC Hammer will top the charts once again after this happens.
Oh my guy. Hot damn, we're getting old, buddy. All right, Dano, we got some games to talk about this week. So anything tickle your fancy? I can't stand this slate. I got to be honest. For a bye week, a Buckeye bye week, you definitely want a couple of bangers. We're lacking some serious juice, and we usually hope heading into weeks like this, like, hey, we say it every year, it's weeks like these. This is when there's all the chaos. It's usually not. It's usually not what happens. But I've been tracking that for like 3 years. But we've got a couple of interesting games. Obviously, if Wisconsin can keep it close with Bama, it'll be an interesting watch. Boston College heads into Mizzou. Very few two ranked opponents playing this week, and that's one of them. Do you think Bill O'Brien can keep it close against the Tigers in Columbia?
You know what? I think this game's going to go one of two ways. Mizzou's either going to make a statement, which is crazy to say that they can make a statement against BC, but they're a ranked team, right? They're 23rd in the nation right now. They came off a win against Florida State, which for whatever reason still has street cred this year.
Right.
But Mizzou could make a statement. I think they're a really, really good team. Not because they beat our JV squad in the Cotton Bowl, but just because I think, I really like their coaching staff. I like their players. You got LB3 out there, returning quarterback, just deep defense. Bill O'Brien seems to have these guys focused though, man. And he's a damn good coach. I've heard some people talk recently about like what would be different if he was here and, if he never left. And I think we'd still be pretty excited if he was here. I think he'd be doing a lot of cool things with the offense. Not nearly as cool as Chip is doing, but yeah, that's probably more than we need to talk about that game. I think it could be interesting.
Yeah, potentially. Oregon State, obviously Oregon's been a massive disappointment so far. The offensive line looks terrible. They've got an injury or two, but they're also rotating guys across that offensive line, which is apparently Dan Lanning's common practice, including at center, which is just bizarre to me. But they're rotating dudes there. They have given up a lot of rushing yards, and Oregon State runs the ball, and they run the ball successfully. I was very surprised to see that they have lost 3 of their last 4 up in Corvallis. That definitely was a shocker to me. They got themselves a game here, and I don't know, man. I don't know that 16 points is a proper line here. Seems like it should be a little tightened. I'm hoping we see a game there in the 3:30 slot. What do you think? We're going to have a competitive game, Oregon State.
That's my upset watch of the week. Absolutely. I mean, Dan Lanning himself is 0-1 in Corvallis. He didn't look, they didn't win that game in his first year against those guys. And that's a bitter rivalry. I think there's some added juice to it this year now that, Oregon left for the Big Ten. Oregon State looks, they've always played that game really, really tight. It's their Rose Bowl, almost every year. So between that and the way that Oregon has looked so far, I don't expect Oregon to cover that game, and I would not be shocked if Oregon State upsets them.
Yeah. I'm very surprised by that Oregon State program after, what's happened and them in Washington State just kind of getting left in the dust, losing all those players that they lost and losing Jonathan Smith, and the fact that they've still been able to keep it rolling with what's interesting there is about Oregon State and Oregon. Like there are a lot of players from the state and from the region that play at Oregon State, and they have this resentment towards Oregon, who is the big name brand program from the state and is comprised of, I don't know how many guys on that roster are from Oregon, but when you look at their recruiting class every year, it's like 25 guys from out of state and like 3 dudes from Oregon. So you got these invaders from another state coming and repping your state. Oregon State represents the people of Oregon. I kind of dig it. It's a rivalry I kind of dig. The same thing with the Apple Cup, as Washington State got left in the dust, then has to acquiesce and lose their home game this year and go play at the Seahawks Stadium. The fans are salty. They're talking about not going to the game. And I'm trying everything I can to get my juices flowing to get jazzed up about this game.
Is that this weekend?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We got the Apple Cup and the Civil War both at 3:30.
Oh, wow. They didn't even give them different time slots. That's rude.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Jed Fish is a really good coach.
Yeah.
I think Washington's they're 2-0 to start off the year, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, they lost a lot, but they brought a lot in. He pulled over a couple guys from Arizona when he left. And in the middle of the night. But yeah, I mean, that's another bitter rivalry where almost anything can happen. I mean, obviously there's not, none of them are vying for anything on a national level this year as of yet. So not as much at stake for one of them or both of them, but it's a bitter rivalry. And, I can't believe that Washington State gave into that, but I guess you either get, part of something or all of nothing type mentality.
Yeah. Disdain Rogue thinks we're just trying to talk ourselves into it here about Oregon State. Trying to talk us. Listen, I'll be honest. I've tried to talk myself into a lot of the games on the slate this weekend being a game because it looks like, there's usually one Saturday or one window where if you got some honeydew jobs to get done during the college football season, you might want to go ahead and take advantage of. And I would say this one qualifies on the surface, just looking at the slate with the Buckeyes being off. If you've got a home project and you're going to be obligated to watch your football for the next several months, I would say this would be a good time to get that done. If I was you. Now, I think
Disdain Rogue is just happy to have the starches out of his diet after the first 2 weeks of the season. He had enough of those potatoes at the dinner table.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Dano, any surprising picks for the week's slate of games or anything else you want to hit on, my man?
You didn't go over the best game on the entire weekend.
What's that?
It's the Wildcats versus the Wildcats tonight.
Yeah, that's tonight. I'm sorry. I totally missed that. I break this down into time slots for my viewing enjoyment on Saturday. And that's not Saturday. That's off my beaten path on my radar. But I'm pumped. This is Dan's alma mater. He's an Arizona Wildcat. Tell us about it, buddy.
Yeah, Arizona's going for it's either their 9th or 10th straight road win dating back to last year. I think they're kind of flying under the radar as it relates to how they finished up last year. And offensively, they got Fafita and McMillan. Kind of a weird game last week for McMillan. He had like 1 or 2 catches. I didn't get a chance to watch it. It came on at like 11 o'clock my time, and I'm too old to stay up that late. It's the one drawback to not living in Arizona anymore is I don't get to watch those games very often. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's not a conference game. I don't know if a lot of so that was scheduled as a non-conference game prior to everybody bolting to the Big 12. And because of the balance of the schedule, they decided to keep it on the calendar, but treat it as a non-conference game, which is interesting when it comes to potential tiebreakers down the road. But, Kansas State hasn't looked as great as I think people expected them to. Avery Johnson has showed flashes. Manhattan is a tough place to play. It's going to be a night game. I am going to tell you right now, with every biased bone in my body, that the Big 12 is going to experience Pac-12 after dark vibes for the first time this season, and Arizona is going to pull off the upset.
I can't wait. It's a great one. I'll be at a high school game tonight, so I don't know what time does that puppy start. Probably 8:00.
8:00 your time. Yep.
K-State. So Arizona, your crew. Now, when I was a kid, and we actually had conferences that represented regions of the country, Kansas State was a team that I rooted for. That was who I chose one in each region of the country. I had Syracuse up in the Northeast, believe it or not, Georgia in the SEC I rooted for, Oregon in the Pac-12, Pac-10, Kansas State down in that neck of the woods. And my Kansas State Wildcats are going to beat your Arizona Wildcats handily after having a not so impressive game against Tulane, who I actually think is pretty doggone good, though. They very easily could have lost that game against Tulane last year. I'm not a huge Avery Johnson believer yet. Hopefully we see some more, but it really was interesting to me that they did not. And again, I didn't see Arizona last week either, that T-Mac didn't get more balls. Like, how do you have a 300-yard performance and then come back with that? What's going on, man? But they are fun to watch. Danny, you're muted, buddy. And this sometimes does happen.
Oh, that was my problem. I had to.
There we go.
After, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, no. I don't know what I said there. Oh yeah, it was against an FCS team. Nonetheless, it was bizarre. I don't know what happened there. Maybe a little bit of a look ahead. I don't know.
Yeah, really strange.
Out in the second, defensively. Hey,
did you see the comment last night that Tom Luganbill has now said that JJ Smith is next level, Julio Jones, AJ Green type of player. And my buddy on Twitter, JJ, called Luganbill out last year when he had him ranked as, I believe, like the fourth wide receiver or something in the class. And it was a real smug jerk about it. So pretty funny now that he is now admitting that he was wrong. And this is what we're going to keep seeing, is all these folks who were holding out, not believing. And I get it. It does sound crazy, right? These guys only come along once every decade, but they've been pushing back really hard. And I probably would too, if this guy played for, I don't know, Oklahoma. You know what I mean? Like, I probably would have been the naysayer, but people are coming around, man. And they're just going to keep on coming around because this dude is everything that everybody's been saying.
Well, that touchdown that he had last week, I mean, the fact that he caught that ball at a dead stop with 5 people converging on him with good angles, and he outran them 70 yards. That's just stupid, man. Like, it's video game-esque. And I'm so excited to watch him for the rest of the year. It's obvious, you pointed this out really well along the way, that they've already made him a focal point of the offense. I mean, to get him, I think almost all of his targets so far, maybe 80, 85, 90% of them have been in the first half. So they obviously have made it a point to get him involved in the game plan. I can't wait until we really start opening things up with that. And I mean, we haven't, we've taken a few shots, but we haven't done anything exotic. Like, we haven't really seen Ryan Day's passing concepts incorporated into a game plan yet. It's going to be sexy, and I can't wait to see it happen.
Yeah. 6 targets in the first halves, which is wild. And that turn and burn is something that, we've seen his crazy catches, his wild body control, his ability to totally play bully ball when he needs to. That's something I think of his game that maybe a lot of folks didn't realize he had. Like, that right there, that's a 5'10", 190-pound wide receiver play right there. That's something you don't expect to see out of a dude that size. And we had this talk earlier on this week, the hypothetical question, which somehow pissed a lot of people off, Dan. Let me tell you, it really pissed a lot of people off to ask this ridiculous hypothetical question in a bye week. Who would you take, freshman JJ or senior Marv on this team right now? Some people super offended by the travesty that we would ask this question to have some fun during a bye week. I can't stand you type of folks, by the way, if you're watching. Like, lighten the hell up. Seriously, dude. It's okay to talk about a stupid hypothetical question in a bye week. Number one. Number two, Marvin can't make that play. So we can talk all you want about who's faster in a straight line. Marvin does not make that play. No chance.
No, I mean, yards after catch, and, a lot of people are going to want to blame McCord, but, yards after catch weren't a big thing for him. Marv made business decisions.
Yeah.
When he was on the field, especially after the Notre Dame game when he got rolled up on, right? Later on in the year, and quite frankly, I think we saw it in the Michigan game a couple times, he made business decisions, especially when it came to blocking. But yeah, no, I think that might have been an 8 to 10 yard completion with Marv. And I hate to say that, but he'd have seen those 5 guys coming, and I think he would have turned up field and then kind of hit the dirt.
Yeah.
And it's not a knock on him, business decision, it's fine. I get it. It's a day and age we live in, but like, it wasn't even in JJ's thought process to do anything other than take it to the crib.
I saw last night that Kyler Murray said something like he's not going to force feed Marv the ball, or he's not going to feature him. I don't know if he could have gone to a worse situation, and I kind of feel bad for him because it certainly seemed like he was so torn about that decision, and almost like he didn't want to be in the position that he was, to be a guy who was going to be drafted so high. He wanted this to be an easier decision and come back. He seemed so reluctant to leave. So I feel bad for him, and I feel like that's a terrible situation. And I don't know if it's going to get any better. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it'll get better once Murray hits a contract year.
Yeah.
Because then he'll be looking for Marv all day long.
Yeah.
That was just such a bizarre, I've got to see the whole quote in the interview, because I can't help but to think that was taken out of context. Like, I get it. You don't want to force the guy, stuff, but man, there were so many examples of him being wide open. I mean, that last play of the game when they could have won it on a walk-off, I think it was, Murray didn't even look at him, and he was wide open down the field. It's, I don't know. It's weird, but that ultimately falls on the head coach.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I still don't think Murray can see over the line out there. I think that's his biggest problem.
He is tiny, man. He's really tiny.
Yeah.
All right, my guys. So we are rolling on an hour and 12 minutes, and you guys have just got your little live look in to the text chain that runs on continuously all day, every day, between Dan, Chad, and I. And it's just, this is all day. So we could just keep going, but we're just going to have to cut it off. So appreciate you for coming on to join me this morning. My man, Dan, Best Damn Podcast. Tell us when you guys are dropping your next episode, brother.
Yeah, so it's Best Damn Pod in the Land. We've got a little bit of a push right now to get to our first 500 subscribers. It opens up a few things for us on YouTube. So if you could jump over to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and you'll get notified. We drop episodes on Tuesdays and Fridays. We're just twice a week. So, it's a slow build for us. We don't have the bandwidth to be able to go more often right now in our personal lives, but we're having fun with it. And man, we appreciate guys like you bringing us on, getting us a little bit of exposure, and really enjoy what's happened with you and all your success. And, being over on the Menace platform now is awesome. So proud of you, buddy. Appreciate you, and keep grinding.
Thanks, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you, man.
All right. Later, buddy. So that's Dan, half of the Best Damn Podcast in the Land. Chad Bro is the other one. And Chad, we're going to have him on for the next post-game show. And Dan is the expert on the Michigan stuff. And I just wanted to get his take on that because, like I said, it's not something that I really follow. But the stuff that's coming out now about this, what we saw on an 11 Warriors podcast from that one guy that he was referencing that he had on. What was that? Did you guys see that? Bubble just had a thumbs down, or did somebody just thumbs me down? Why would you do that? That's not very nice. Anyway, just wanted to have him on, get his input on that. And I think he did awesome. So if you could go check them out at the best damn podcast in the land, get them a subscription, to really solid dudes and good Buckeye fans, right? And that's what we do in this community. So Mika asks, when do we call in? Go ahead, click that link. Mika, are you coming on? Come on, let's talk. Right now, my buddy Cody is in the chat. Cody is down there waiting to call in. And Cody got a hold of me yesterday. Cody's got a story to tell about tonight. Cody, are you ready? Let me know. So Devin says, my camera does that all the time. It matches my hand signal. This is something you're telling me has always happened and I've never even noticed it? So it gave me a thumbs down because my hand went thumbs down. Is that what you're saying? I did see that balloons once. You guys ever see the balloons? Just making a hand gesture or something. This is not great for a fella who talks with his hands a lot, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's probably a way to turn that thing off. Dev says yes, it does happen all the time, and I've just never noticed. So we're waiting on my man Cody to let me know when he is ready to roll. Dago says, "Oh boy, I'm not hip to what you guys are talking about right now." Kevin, thanks, my man. Listen, this is a conversation that this is my guy Mello and Dev. Mello, half of the Buckeye Boys podcast over on the OHIO podcast, along with the best damn podcast in the land. Check these guys out. They just started Buckeye Boys with a Z. Got to be with a Z, not a boring S. We're the Buckeye Boys with a Z, and that is Mello and Devin, and they are. Oh, yeah. They are dropping several episodes. They're getting their feet under them. They're about a month in. In fact, I was on with them just the other day, and we had a really fun show. But he says people are acting like Georgia is Thanos, and it's almost as if everybody forgets what just happened the last time Ohio State played them. Like, does everybody forget that? It was blow for blow. The Buckeyes should have won the game. Could have won the game, didn't win the game. I would say they were the better team that night. And yes, they had CJ Stroud. This Buckeye team going to be a lot different than that team. But I would say that this Buckeye team going to be a lot tougher than that team as well. Georgia is not that dude. They are not that straight up Death Star killer that they were in that first national championship year. That's not who they are. Very, very good team. All right. Now, I am going to bring on our first phone call because we got two phone calls waiting. Now, one is the first one, someone I've been waiting to talk to for a very long time and has emailed me several times. A very common name that you guys are going to recognize, Mika Hanna in all the chats. And I am excited to bring on Mika to join me. Mika, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for calling in. It is great to talk to you on a Friday. We've got high school football today. You are the go-to for high school football prospects in the state of Ohio. How you doing today?
Doing good. Excited.
Are you going to a game today?
No, I can't travel much because of my disability, but I do watch them and catch the highlights whenever I can.
What prospects are you looking out for tonight?
Jamarcus Weiss, and I think Ashland's got a game tonight too. And Nathan Bernhardt's been looking good. I think he's got his interception issues fixed.
Nathan Bernhardt, who's been a prospect from Ashland. Listen, we're talking a big kid, 6'5", got a howitzer for an arm.
He's gotten He's got 9 touchdowns this season to only 1 interception, and the only knock on him I had was he takes too many chances with the football. I think he's finally got it fixed.
That's exciting to hear. We are definitely looking for good things out of Nathan Bernard. I don't think he's going to get that Ohio State offer that some people are hoping that he gets, but he is going to get a big time offer, and he's certainly getting better. So that's great to hear about them. How about Levi Davis, Mika?
His team around him has gotten way better. He used to be all they had on offense.
Yeah, and he is a dynamic quarterback. So
Really improved, but I really don't see us offering a quarterback that small. I just don't think it's Ryan Day's bag.
unfortunately, I agree with you. My philosophy on the 2026 quarterback is you've missed out on the top 12 guys. I think that you should go ahead and get a guy who's got really high potential, really high upside in one area, but has a knock in another area that's kind of keeping his rankings lower or keeping his offers down. So, for instance, a guy that's a crazy athlete or a guy with a howitzer arm. We've got 2 right in Ohio, in Nathan Bernard and Levi Davis, and I think that either one of those guys would be a pretty cool pick.
I can completely agree.
Yeah.
I've been pushing for either one of them to get an offer.
Well, Mika, let's be fair. You push for every Ohio player.
That's probably true.
You absolutely do. All right, Mika, we've got another call to get to. I really appreciate you calling in and all the support you have shown to the show since I started. You are a great friend to Juck on Bucks, and we appreciate you, all of us do in the chat.
Thanks. Love you guys.
Thanks so much. We'll
Go
talk to you
Bucks.
soon. Go Bucks. Mika's awesome. Absolutely love Mika. And if you've been in any chat or look at any Buckeye chat, you will see Mika and you will see love for Ohio high school football players. And I'm like an encyclopedia, an absolute encyclopedia. She brings up guys I've never heard of in the class of 2026. I got to go look them up real quick and then pretend like I know who the hell she's talking about. Very, very impressive. So Mika's awesome. Big friend of the show. We've got another caller, and that is Cody, though he has not responded to me in the comments. We'll see if he can hear us. Cody, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here, man. How you doing?
Cody. Hey, what's up, buddy? Cody reached out to me yesterday. Cody got a big game tonight. Cody, tell us who you coach for.
Yeah, so I coach safeties at River Valley High School up in Marion, and we're playing against Bogpin Miller tonight. Pretty damn good athlete.
So we were talking yesterday about this, and I'm just irritated somewhat. And I know this doesn't matter or make any difference. The dude's got his Buckeye offer, but 15 years ago, they came out with this category of an athlete on these ranking systems. And there are guys who are rated as an athlete. Michael Terry Jr., he's a 5-star athlete that Oregon and Texas are going after. Like, this is a column, and you give it usually to a quarterback who is going to turn into a different position when he goes to college. Just a great athlete. Now, Bodpin Miller is a sick athlete. This dude's a 3-star. It makes no sense to me. You and I both know what kind of athlete he is. Your guys get to play against him tonight. I'm so excited for these kids, dude.
Oh, yeah, they're pumped already. And we actually played against that Ashland quarterback in week 1 also.
So you played against Nathan Bernard. How did he do against your safeties?
We held him to 150 yards through the air, and I think we're the only ones to pick him off so far.
Okay. You guys did damn good.
Yeah, I mean, we did good. We got gashed a little bit on the ground. We had our 2 first-string and second-string nickelbacks both injured that week, and ended up having to play kind of like a stand-up D end at that nickelback, and it did not look pretty at run defense.
Yeah.
We were tied 27-all with 3 minutes to go, and they went ahead with like a minute to go in the game, so we lost by a score. But it was a good game.
So Bob Miller, we have seen he can definitely throw the ball deep, but primarily it's his wheels that are just dynamic. I'm expecting your guys are he's gonna get to the second level quite a bit, and they're gonna be getting physical with him. But these stories, when I look back, being able to play against some really awesome players, I'm here 25 years later talking about them. So really cool that they get to make a memory like that. And you, anything else you want to add, my man?
No, man, just love the show. Keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you so much, Cody. I appreciate you, buddy. Have a good day and good luck tonight. Let us know how it goes.
All right, man. Thanks.
Thanks, Cody. And that's our man, Cody. That is so cool. But he reached out to me yesterday and was just like, hey, big fan of the show. Heard you talking about BP Miller before. We got him tonight. I mean, that is so cool. I can't wait to see how his safeties did. But holding Nathan Bernhard to 150 yards, that's one hell of an effort by the secondary. So we will get to some comments, and then we're going to kick it on out of here, guys. We're at about an hour and 25 minutes. I think it's been a fun Friday show. Kemp asked me if I'm going to Disney. Hell no. Oh, have you seen the story about the man whose wife died from a peanut allergy at a Disney restaurant? No, I haven't. I have not seen that because he signed up for a Disney Plus account to purchase his tickets. He had to settle. Wow. No, I did not. So we've got a place in the area that's my wife's family has been going to this place for, I don't know, since they were like kids. And it's just expounded, gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and fancier, and golf courses and all that jazz. And she continually drags me down there. I like to go different places and experience different areas. She likes to go to this same place in Central Florida. There's not an ocean. There's not an ocean in Central Florida. I like to be around the beach. I don't like the beach itself. I like the vibe around the beach. So that's where I'd rather go. But this is where we go usually a couple times a year down and spend some time. Disney, I can't stand. And I'm so happy my kids are over the age. I did like Universal when they were kids. That was fun. Look, Billy McBride says, drag me down there like he doesn't love it. I can't stand it. I'm not kidding. I'm a routine guy. I am a creature of habit. I do not like being thrown off my routine. I really don't. And I hate flying, and we have to fly. So that's why I'm not going to that Oregon game. There is no way I could make that flight. Can't do it. Now, I've done it before to spend a week in Aruba or something, but not for a one-day football game. I just can't do it. And what sucks about traveling to a really big time game, which we've all done before, you spend a lot of money, you spend a lot of effort. If your team loses, the whole thing's a bust. It's a terrible memory. You know what I mean? Terrible memory. So some of my favorite games that I've traveled to have been games that the Buckeyes don't play in. Like, you go to a national championship game that the Bucks aren't playing in. I've been to 2. Amazing experience. Like, so much fun because you really don't give a damn. Like, it's not going to spoil your day. Conversely, imagine traveling to the 2006 or 2007 national championship game. That is a painful memory. That is not fun. Like, that is not a good time. And you do it for the gamble, the roll of the dice. Maybe you hit. And if you hit big, right? But it is a gamble. All right. Do we got anything you guys in the chat want to talk about? My man Raphael says, Juck, I live near Orlando. It's not all that great. You should definitely visit St. Pete near Tampa. Beaches, great food, great fishing, and so much more there. I think that I think that's where her mom lives, near St. Pete. I would definitely like to be there. She's attached to this place. It's this place called Orange Lake. And I think a lot of it has to do with like sentimental growing up kind of things for her. Check out Jaron Mock, Juck. All right, let me write that down, Mika. Jaron Mock. I will check him out. Raphael says so he comes up for Florida. Second year of the cheating scandal to the game. First ever Buckeyes game was a loss, and it hurt. And it does, man. It's a roll of the dice when you travel. Alex asked, does having a bye week in week 3 hurt us or help us? I'm agnostic on this, to tell you the truth. We got 2 bye weeks this year, as everybody does, and that's not something new to college football. It's just the way the calendar falls. In 2025, and it's the same way. It's just you can't start your first game till 1 week prior to Labor Day, and then the last Saturday of November is the final week. And in that time slot, there are usually 13 Saturdays, which means 12 regular season games, 1 bye week. In this particular one, there are 14 Saturdays, 2025 as well. So we have 2 bye weeks, which means this is just kind of like a bonus bye week. I get the impression from Ryan Day and the crew that they would prefer not to have this bye week. They wanted to keep their momentum going. So in that sense, they'd prefer not to have it. But I don't think it hurts, because you're still in the cream puff section of your schedule where you're just trying to gel, and they come back for another cream puff game, which means you are now 4 weeks in with 3 opponents and a bye week of cream puff central before you play your first game. So ultimately, I think it's a benefit, but that's great. Alex says that second bye is perfect after Oregon and before Nebraska. No doubt about it. And that is a tough stretch there. We've got a tough little Big Ten stretch, with what's the order of that, man? We got the Iowa game, the Penn State game, Oregon, Nebraska, all kind of sandwiched together in a little 4-pack. Definitely going to be a challenging one. That Miami podcast I was on last night, guys, it's called Miami Flow, Miami FLO. And we had a lot to talk about the Buckeyes schedule, about the Big Ten, if you want to check that out. Last night, Miami Flow, FLO. Those dudes, despite calling us Ohio, it was an accident. He corrected himself. And the joke about the 2002 national championship, really cool dudes. I had a hell of a time. Talking football with them. Really liked them. They definitely were respectful and not like idiot homers. And they have a really good channel. So that was a good one. Alex says Oregon, Nebraska, and Penn State in a row. Okay. And Iowa falls before them. So pretty tough. Raphael says Penn State does not look great, but we often play them close. I'm telling you, I love that Penn State game. It's always one of my favorites of the year. And the fact that we did not protect that rivalry, we could have. Iowa protected 3 rivalry games. We could have had whatever we wanted. We could have protected that, played them every year. We chose not to. I understand the sentiment. You want to make sure that you make it to the playoffs every year. But I don't like giving up good games. I absolutely love good games. That's why I watch football. And I told these Miami guys that yesterday. I said to them, I love college football for good games. And basically what they were saying, this is their perspective on the outside, looking in at Ohio State. Every year you're going to win 10 games because you can out-talent everybody in the Big Ten. Well, he's talking about the old Big Ten before we got some new talent. And you're going to win 10 games, but then when you play somebody with some dogs inside, an SEC team with some good interior players, you just can't quite hang. And that's the perception from the Miami fans about Ohio State. But to his point, and my response was, I've been jealous of the SEC schedule for many years. In the fact that we can look at our schedule most years before it even starts and just say 10 wins, then we got the game and we got Penn State. You know what I mean? It's just not so fun. And I love college football for fun college football games. Yes, I want to win, but ultimately I want fun Saturdays. This week's slate, not a ton of fun. But my point is, they get about 5 big games every year, or exciting games. Weston asks, Juck, do you think with Chip on the staff now, there will be as much of a risk of Day tightening up during close games? I don't. I actually think that this is a great benefit of him being able to bring in Chip and give up play calling, is he can really focus on his, number one, time management with 2-minute warning and all this. And by the way, remember when he wrote for his personal goals, mastering end of the game timing and clock management, and that 2-minute warning was in his list of just like 5 goals. That 2-minute warning was in there, which means he understands that he's not been great with end of game time management, and he's really focusing in on this and that 2-minute warning and how he can use it best to his advantage, which I really like. I really like that his mind was already on that when he did this thing, however long ago he did it. But, this is something that Dan talks about quite a bit. Whenever Ryan Day says matchup games, Dan gets a visceral reaction about him puckering up. And we all know, what our guy here means, what Weston means. I just have to feel that he knows that. I think he recognizes all of that. And without the play calling, it's going to be much better for that. Mike says, Ryan is maturing as a coach. He'll keep his foot on the, put the pedal to the metal, so to speak. I agree. I think that we've got a guy who is definitely maturing as a coach, and we've seen it in all the changes he's made. And again, this is what I was telling those Miami guys on that podcast last year. They all need to be very afraid. They need to be very afraid, because this is a different Ryan Day running a different program, a guy who didn't just keep chopping wood and doing what he was doing, a guy who looked at his program, made a whole hell of a lot of changes that started with bringing in Julian Sayin, a move I don't think he ever would have done before, over top of Aaron Nolan. That's just something he really struggled with. Ultimately, he said, look, I can't care about people's feelings at this point. I got to do what I got to do. Brings in Julian Sayin. That was move number 1. He gives up play calling. Obviously, that was huge. You know how much he loves play calling. That was so difficult for him. And you could still see maybe a month ago when he would talk about it, how difficult that was for him. And it wasn't until really last week that we saw him talk about that and kind of have a glint in his eye, realizing all the new things he could do now. I can look people in the eye. I can go bust the ref's chop for 2 consecutive plays that in the end can maybe get us one later on in the game, because I've been in his ear bitching. He can't do any of that stuff when he's calling plays, always thinking about the next play. He can go pop in on the defense. He can go talk to his assistants about personnel. Maybe he wants to see another guy out there. All these things that he delegated, and he loves delegating, and that was on his list. Those guys are the head coach of their position group. However, if I'm the head coach, maybe I might want to see a little something different in one of those groups. Now I've got time to go talk to him about it. I don't if I'm consistently talking or just working on the plays. And he put a ton of time into that. So he is recognizing how good this is for him. And I think we're going to see this pay dividends for us. But to me, the biggest thing about this team that has got me excited is the juice, the Urban era juice. Do you remember how much Urban would talk about juice? We got to bring the juice, got to bring the juice, got to bring the juice. That is what's been missing since this class of really this 21 class, this crazy class, 7 5-stars, these guys that are seniors now. We've not seen a ton of juice in the last couple years. And these guys last night brought up McCord to me, and not understanding why Ohio State fans did not like McCord. And I said, well, he's tearing it up now. But we're looking for the juice, man. And what we've got now, I think it's a case where kind of everybody won in this scenario. McCord suddenly showing the juice with Fran Brown, which is good, which is great for him. And we're all happy for him. But now we got some juice on this team, and it's great. Mark Swick says, would explain what Stover said about the time he called out a screen for him that was never a play we ran before. are we talking about? So what I got out of that was like computer hacking is what I thought was the insinuation there. Raphael says the way you described the play calling situation was eye-opening. Having a head coach tied down to play calling costs a lot of opportunities for real-time coaching. It was eye-opening because I don't think a lot of people have put themselves in that situation and really looked at it like that. But to be honest, pretty basic stuff, right? It's pretty basic to think if I am calling these plays, I can't go do all those things that a coach who's not calling plays can do. And it's definitely eye-opening. All right, guys, do we have any last juicy comments we need to hit on? I am now at an hour and 40 minutes, and while I do love our live calls together, or live shows together, I have got to do some work today. So we're going to wrap this puppy up as we head into our bye week Saturday tomorrow. And if there is, I'll tell you this. If Alabama and Wisconsin, if that puppy is close heading into the fourth quarter, best believe, check your YouTube feed. We're coming on live because I will be so pumped if we get a game tomorrow in that Alabama-Wisconsin game. Again, that was one of my top 25 games of the year because of the implications. And I think it's going to be so much fun if we actually get a game out of that puppy. So check us out and see if we go live. Stay tuned now. It is 11/11, my anniversary. I love you, Nina. Oh, man, I'm going to get so many bonus points for showing her that later. She certainly doesn't watch the show. I have to show her clips of it. Like she never watches. Nobody in my family watches me. Somewhat disturbing. Anyway, my mom does. My mommy does, of course. Hi, Mom. Love you, Mom. Anyway, you guys are great. Had a great time today. And I will talk to you maybe in a live show tomorrow if we get some good action. If not, I'll see you sometime during the weekend for the weekend show. Dave, yes, are you going to do a call-in show? Dave, this was a call-in show. The link was in the description. And Steve loves the live feed. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Richie. Raphael, you have a great weekend yourself, my man. I will talk to you guys soon for the weekend show. Juck on Bucks out. Have a great weekend, guys.